Joseph, a theist from Michigan, who wants to know, is it God in general or the concept thereof you have an issue with, or the God of religious texts? Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
All right. So okay. I think Armin and I have two related answers to that. Mine is I have not seen sufficient good evidence for any definition of God that has been presented to me so far. Armin?
Yeah, so any claims without evidence, like God, the texts associated with God, I don't know, Santa Claus, jinns, anything, like they're all the same. Like, what do you mean? You seem to, I don't know. The question seems to be like we have an issue with it because we don't like something about it, but it's just basically all of it is just claims without evidence. We have issue with all claims without evidence. We can't believe in claims without evidence, and that's what all they are.
And so the claims without evidence, which from your experience, I'm guessing that the majority of theists call it their call. Their evidence is mostly based on personal evidence, or this happened in my life, that happened in my life. And you can make the argument that that's not a objectifiably, there's not an objective claim of evidence because not everyone can observe that claim. If that's the common theme amongst the vast majority of people who claim to have that experience with God, are they all, I wonder if all of those people who make those personal claims, that is not completely objectifiably, or we all see the same thing you see. Are all those people, from your perspective, delusional, or maybe they saw things that they didn't really see, or they have a bias? What is your perspective on it?
Yeah, so people who grow up in Islamic countries tend to have Islamic experiences. People who grow up in Hindu countries tend to have Hindu experiences. Those of us who grow up in Christian countries tend to have Christian experiences. So I don't think that, so you can have an experience, and then how you interpret that experience is going to be strongly influenced by the culture within which you were raised. So if you were raised to believe in spirits like Japanese Shinto, you may attribute things happening more to spirits than to a God like you would if you were in Christianity. So I don't deny that people have experiences. What I'll have problems with is how do we know those experiences are true and your interpretation of those experiences is correct. But no, that is not actually, we get so many calls. Personal experience is actually probably no more or less than the look at the trees argument, which is, of course, the argument from design, or the argument, the cosmological arguments. We get the whole gamut of the argument range, and they're the same arguments over and over again. Nobody's come up with anything new. So people can have personal experiences. People can have the same experience and interpret different ways. They can interpret the same way, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's real.
So, but you're asking us to make a claim. Like, why are you? I mean, we don't have a claim. So, first of all, you're saying a lot of the people who call you about why they believe in God, say most of them are like this. We don't have I don't have a percentage. I don't know if this is not. Most of them, like many of them, have other reasons for why they believe in God. Some of them is personal experiences. A lot of them are not. I don't know what the percentages are, but a lot of them give other reasons or other evidence, which are, pretty horrible when it comes to standards for evidence. But even among the people who give personal experience as a reason, then you ask us, like, what do you ask us, why, what do you think they're saying? Why do you think they're saying what they're saying? But who cares? Like, I don't know. Like it's all over the place, like why, I'm not going to make a claim. I mean, I don't have access to that person. If maybe give that person to me and give me a degree in psychology and give me, 5 years of having repeated sessions with them, then I might have an answer for you. I don't know. Like, I just look at the evidence. I don't have to tell you why are they saying what they're saying. I just look at it and I see it's not good enough. And I'm like, yeah, this is not good reason enough. That's all I need to tell you. But given that you believe in God, I'm assuming, right? You believe in God, right?
Yeah.
You says yes. So what do you think is a good evidence, and have we met them? Like, what do you think is a good standard for an evidence in God, and are we there? Do we need evidence?
Kind of like a combination. I mean, it's going to be, if I was to say scientifically, for me, I looked at the DNA. I mean, there are some studies I did a while ago, so I can't be super specific about how the DNA is formed and how they got down to the micro little details about DNA. And I thought that was...
Don't tell us the things that you can't tell about the DNA.
So,
you looked at the DNA and you found evidence for God. Go on.
Yeah. So basically, the argument you're making, Joseph, is the teleological argument, the argument from design, right? So and I just want to be real clear that I got your argument correctly. You don't think DNA can come about naturally; it had to be designed. Would that be fair to say?
That would be very fair to say.
Okay. So the problem with every argument from design, or as I like to call them, look at the trees argument, which is kind of the same argument, they're all the same argument, is that you first have to prove the designer exists before you can prove that something was designed. Because we don't have any good way of determining what in this universe is natural and what is designed, because the only way to compare it to find out is to compare it to something that is designed, that is either known to be designed or known to be not designed. We only have one universe. And what science has shown is that there is a great potential for DNA to occur very naturally. Now, we don't have all the steps. If there are 10 steps, we probably have 7 of them, and the 3 we're missing are kind of in the middle. But, by way of analogy, but until you prove there is a designer, the vast majority of the evidence that we have is that there is no designer. We can look back at the last 2,000 years of history, and we can see that every phenomena that had a supernatural explanation for it now no longer has a supernatural explanation. We have natural explanations for almost everything. Why would we assume, given this huge body of knowledge and the fact that no naturally explained phenomena has ever given way to a supernaturally explained phenomena, why would we assume that the supernatural or God is ever involved in any of this? What makes that logical?
And after this, I want to ask some questions from Joseph.
Sure.
If it's okay.
Yeah, sure. To answer real quickly, I would just say, personal experience is, if I create a child, I understand that child is naturally being created within the womb, but there is something that has to happen that takes place that sparks that life within that child. I'm aware.
Why is that not just chemicals?
Great.
That it's chemicals.
Because
why is it a big stretch? Where's your evidence that there's anything else that needs to be there?
Well, I would say that's a massive stretch. I don't now me personally, I've never met anyone yet personally who have looked in a child's eyes, and the first thing that came to their mind was when they say, you can tell someone about you can look into the windows of the eyes of the soul, that kind of euphemism. I've never seen a parent look into the child's eyes and think to themselves or say out loud to me or anyone else that, oh, this was just a chemical process that took place. It was something that you see in that person's eyes. That's not, you can't, scientifically say, like, you can't grasp it physically, right? You can't scientifically measure under a microscope.
Right, but
this is the process, but we understand there's a natural process that took place. But prior
what?
There had to be a spark of something that created that.
So what? I know, okay. But see, you're making an argument from incredulity, right? You are incredulous that life could come from just sperm and an egg coming together, that there has to be something else, and that's your incredulity. Is an argument from incredulity a valid argument?
Well, I mean, I guess can something come from, it seems like the chemicals, can something come from nothing? Can creation, because we are...
You're not answering my question. Is an argument that starts with, I am incredulous that X can happen, a valid argument?
I'm not, to be honest, I'm not sure what incredulous means. What is the definition of that?
I don't have a belief that X can happen, therefore. How's that?
I don't have a belief that X can happen, therefore.
Yeah, because that's basically what you're saying. You don't have a belief that an egg and a sperm can come together and create a human being. That there has to, you're saying there has to be something extra. You don't know what that extra is. You have no way to demonstrate that extra actually exists, right? So you have no belief that any of that happens. Just because you don't believe something to be true, does that mean it is not true?
No, I believe it happens. It's a natural process. There's no doubt that.
What is this extra thing then?
Down. What is this extra thing? It's something that you to put it under a microscope is very. If I was to look at you face to face and talk to you, I would see that there's something else in you that created the physical being that you are. But for me to try to.
But what is that thing? How do you know it exists, and how can you see it?
That's a great question. It's more so. It's more like how can I feel it? So it's not just.
Let me run this by you real quick, right? So every social species that we're aware of has very similar behaviors to humans. They have behaviors that they get jealous when other people get things that they don't. They get upset when people steal from them. They tend to cooperate together and to need that cooperation to survive better, right? Why is that? Why is this? Why is us being a social species not a better explanation than some undefinable thing that you can't tell me how to detect or prove that exists?
Could you reframe that question for me, please? I'm just trying
Sure.
to what you're saying.
Every social species that we're aware of, let me get through this. Every social species we're aware of exhibits behaviors similar to humans that we consider moral. So social species, when another member of that species steals from them, they get upset. When another member of that species gets something that they don't, or they get upset. Some species will risk their own lives to help another member of the species they've never met, and these types of behaviors. And this is all in social species because cooperation is a survival strategy, and it works really, really well when everybody's playing by the same set of rules. Why is that not a better explanation than this indefinable thing that you claim exists and can't prove?
Oh, that's okay. So it's not that I agree with everything you just said. It's not that I think what I'm saying is a better explanation. There's just sort of like, I think of like Wizard of Oz. There's a puppet master behind the things we see in front of our eyes that is not just operating itself. So these emotions that you describe of other, let's just say the animal kingdom, because we all evolved from experts from the primates, and that is, to me, I believe.
Oh no, I also describe behaviors of rats and horses and other social species, meerkats, and other social species. So it's not just primates. It's all, like I said, it's almost all social species. Even orcas and other whales will see the same types of behaviors in. So yeah, social species in general.
Intelligence. So there's two intelligence.
Yes.
All signs of intelligence, and in that.
Except we see the same thing happen in bacteria.
It doesn't.
Yeah, we see.
Right. I mean, like if you're talking about like the atom, that's intelligence. I mean, all of these things as intelligence.
No, atoms have no intelligence. They just do what they do because of the laws of physics, right? Bacteria have cooperation mechanisms, and they have very sophisticated ways of determining who's cheating, and then punishment. It's all fairly sophisticated. But a natural explanation is always going to be better than a supernatural explanation. Anyway, Armin, you had a question.
Okay.
No, yeah, I was started to was going to go back to the question that I was trying to get at. You were saying that can we rewind a couple of minutes back? You were trying to prove, I was trying to get you step by step into your proof of your evidence for the existence of God. So let's rewind and listen to you offering the evidence. Give me the evidence, because I wanted to see how you actually construct that argument.
The evidence thing is that I know that you guys have so much experience of everything that I would say is things that you would have heard before ad nauseum.
I don't care. I'm not gonna tell you why you're wrong. Okay. I just want to see. I'm not gonna give you explanations for how things works. I just want to see what you say. What's your evidence? Like, imagine I haven't heard any of these arguments before. Okay. What's your evidence for the existence of God? Just give me the evidence.
Yes, experience. So let me see what evidence. Personally, well, I would scientifically, I did say DNA. To me, I thought that was fascinating to me. So the
DNA
structure, the structure, that to me is, now you can argue that it's not enough, that we're just at a certain point and that at some point we're going to figure out that.
No. I haven't heard, I'm not going to argue, like you say, you could argue. I haven't heard anything yet. For me to argue, I can't argue back against that because I haven't heard anything yet, okay? You say that DNA is fascinating. I agree. So far, I'm not going to argue against you because we both are in agreement. The DNA is fascinating, okay? So how could I argue against that? What's the next step? I want you to get to God. You said the DNA is fascinating. Is that the only thing you're going to say? Like, no. I'm sure there's a lot of steps in between the DNA being fascinating and God, right? That can't be the end of your argument. Okay, go on.
Oh man, as far as like naturally speaking, things we can see, objectify, that to me is fascinating. But okay, so personally, it's just it's things that, again, I wish I could, if I could take my brain and put it in yours and you can see what I've experienced in life, it would make more sense.
Wait. We are still, why are we going to your life? We're talking about the DNA, okay? See, we haven't yet even started to make an argument, and now you switch to your experiences that you have in your life. Did we just abandon the DNA argument? Can we continue the DNA argument? Because so far we're in agreement. You just said so far that the DNA is fascinating, and I agree with you. Are you going to abandon? Because was that the entirety of that argument? Is that why you're abandoning that argument?
Well, when I came on initially, it was to ask the question that I asked, but I didn't actually come on.
Okay, but I don't forget that. Forget that. I'm asking you a question. Okay, how do we get from the DNA being fascinating to God? Was that the end of it, or did you have any other steps that gets us to God?
No, so I would have to go back and actually jot down a lot of details. And what I will do is I will come back on the show and I will retouch on the DNA argument. It's been a couple.
Do you agree, Joseph? That the DNA being fascinating is not a good argument for the existence of God? Do you agree with that?
On the general statement alone, absolutely not. But it's the things that I've learned. This is many months back, where I got more into detail about it. I didn't bother writing down specific details, but it was just, it got into much more detailed explanation of the DNA and how. And
where were you?
Like things like this. So
where were you reading this? Real quick, where were you reading about DNA?
Well, there's a few places.
Remember
books that I read. I did save the books. I had to go back into my my cache.
Are they books on DNA written by PhDs in biology and actual researchers in DNA and actual researchers in abiogenesis?
As well as people who did not have a particular belief one way or the other, so they claim about a God or a lack of God. So I didn't
ask about that. I asked about biologists and I asked about abiogenesis researchers. I don't care what their beliefs are. I care about the research they're doing. So if you're not reading if you're reading about DNA and it's not from a biologist who's talking about and studies DNA, such as an abiogenesis researcher, then you're not reading anything worthwhile. You're just reading someone's opinion about stuff, and that's not good enough, especially if you're reading for people who are writing from a theological point of view, right? Because if they let their beliefs color their facts, that's not good.
Okay, can I get back to the point that Joseph, you read some details about the DNA, okay, and you don't remember the specific details. That's okay, but what is it about those details? I don't need you to remember those details itself, but can you tell me what is it about those details that made you convinced that there's a God, that's an evidence?
Well, it didn't make me convinced, but there was evidence. It was just the things that I'm just going back to my root memory here.
To me, Joseph, it seems like the details that, correct me if I'm wrong, to me it seems like you are saying that they were so fascinating, that there was a lot of details, there was a lot of complexity involved. Is that what you're saying?
It was very complex, and so, like I said, I will come back, and I will have people.
No, but here's the thing: don't come back with that, because that would be a repeat of saying that the DNA is fascinating. So let's say you go and read all these details and come back to us with like, oh my God, did you know how this falls like here and this goes there and then this happens and this happens, and like, oh my God, yeah, that's very interesting. But that just adds to the first claim, for the first part of your argument, that this is all very fascinating. All that detail will just add to that. But we already agreed that. I already agreed that this whole thing is very complex. I already agreed that there's a lot of details involved. I already agreed that this is extremely fascinating. If all this data that you bring us would just make it even more fascinating, but we have moved on that point. The fascinating part we agree on. How are you going to go to the next step? Because I think we are a couple of steps still away from the God claim. We're still in the DNA being fascinating claim, which we agree with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
See, that goes back to what I said earlier. Before you make an argument from design, first you have to prove the designer, or you have to take something that is known to be designed or known to be natural and compare the two to make your argument. We only have one universe, so you can't point to anything in the universe as being natural or designed if you're going to claim there's a designer for the entire universe. That leaves you with the only option of first proving a designer, or in this case, first proving that some entity, whether you call it God or a spirit or whatever, created DNA if you're going to claim that DNA can only be designed. So you've got to start with the designer first. You can't work backwards, you got to work forwards for an argument for design to work. Does that make sense?
That's interesting. I mean,
yeah.
I think to you it does, but I guess that's just the way. That's your bias.
Joseph, not ours.
Well,
do you agree?
Let me try this. We have two things. We have a new thing in front of us. How would you go about proving this new thing in front of us was designed or natural? How would you do that?
Well, what they would call reverse engineering, which is something we do all the time with a lot of different things. You want to find out what is this thing. It's like when I was a child, I look in the sky, oh, why are there clouds? It's a very rudimentary.
We do that with leaves, and we know that leaves are naturally designed. We do the same thing with cars. We know cars are designed, or leaves are natural, cars are not. They're designed. So we can reverse engineer both of those. That's not really good enough, is it?
Well, if you're going back to the source and the root of the thing, to me, that seemed like that would be relevant, because you can't start from. It starts from seeing the thing and then reverse, and then going back behind and breaking it down to see what created that thing that made that. Okay, there was this car part that went here, that went there. This came together in such a way is not just the whole part that we see, it's something else behind it. There was a creator behind the car. There was a creator behind the body. There was something. Now, whether that creator...
Well, how do you know that there's a creator behind the body? Where is the creator you can point to? I can point to the designers of a car. Where's the designer for a body?
So I'm assuming that you have a kid or two or a few, who knows?
No, I don't have any kids, but that's irrelevant, right? I wasn't created by my parents. My biological parents had sex, and I was a result of that. I was just a transfer of chemicals into the human being I am today. But they didn't design me. Where's the designer?
So you say you're a product of the chemicals that came together as a result of the sperm and the egg. I personally would give you much more credit than that. I think you're much more than just the chemicals.
I don't care. I care about evidence. And you're not answering the question. The question I had, where I have evidence for a designer for a car, where's my evidence for a designer of a body?
So you, from my opinion, my logical thinking, as best as I can tell you right now, you are the evidence of your mother and father's creation.
No, I'm not. I'm evidence that my parents had sex, right? And I'm not asking about creation. I'm asking about designer. Where is the designer?
You know, that's a question. That's a great question. And that's,
I agree.
So Jim, just real quick, that's the question that we all ask ourselves. And that's not, as a human being, just like yourself, I can't, as much as I would like to, I can't give you the answer to that question. That's a question even
okay, so let me ask you this question. If you do not have evidence for a designer, is it rational to believe in things for which you have no evidence?
Well, I think the rational aspect would be your own existence, just your own awareness of yourself.
You didn't answer the question.
Why do you
didn't answer the question. Is it rational to believe in things without sufficient good evidence?
It's not rational. But if you're making an assumption that I don't believe what I believe because of lack of evidence, then that would be false because I can.
So let's go back. You don't have evidence of a designer, and you claim that the human body was designed and that the universe was designed, but you have no evidence for the designer, which means you don't have sufficient good evidence to believe in a designer, right?
No. No, not at all.
You just, all right.
Evidence of.
No, you see, again, so we've been over this ground. We're not going to do it again because we're at the end of the call at 6:30. We're half an hour over. And here's what you need to do. You need to come up with good evidence for a designer, and you need to go back and listen to this call and realize that you have agreed that you do not have sufficient good evidence for a designer. And yet you claim there is one, and you believe there is one. And then you said, no, that's not rational to believe in things for which you do not have sufficient good evidence. And I agree with that too. But you need to go back and you look at your evidence, and you need to calmly and realize why, when it comes to an argument from design, you need to prove a designer first. Anyway, thanks for the call. Call back again. It was a great call.